Have you ever walked into a room, looked around, and suddenly felt like you don't belong anymore? Not because someone said anything, not because you changed, but because somehow everyone else looks younger. And in that moment, a quiet voice in your head whispers, "Wait, when did I get old?" If that feeling has ever hit you, even once, then this video is going to hit different. But before we dive in, I want you to do something bold. Comment your age right now. Don't overthink it. Just drop the number. Because by the end of this video, that number might feel completely different to you. And if you've ever compared your life timeline to someone else's and felt behind, hit that like button. Subscribe to SOHAG'S tutorials because we don't just talk about life here. We understand it. Let's talk about why feeling old has nothing to do with age. The moment it hits you. So imagine this. You're at an event you've loved for years. Maybe it's a convention, a campus reunion, a festival, somewhere you've always felt at home. You've been going for years. You know the vibe, you know the energy, and then one year, you look around, and it's like the crowd changed overnight. Everyone looks younger, louder, more energetic, and suddenly you're hyper-aware of your own age. You think, wait, I'm 27, or 25, or 30, and it feels heavy, not because 27 is old, but because something shifted. Psychologists call this a temporal self-comparison trigger. It's when your present self suddenly becomes aware of the distance from your past self. It's not that you're old, it's that you're no longer who you were, and that realization, that's what stings. But 27 isn't old. Here's the funny part. Whenever someone says they feel old at 27, someone older immediately jumps in. 27, that's young, I'm 40. And then someone else says, 40, that's nothing, I'm 60. And it keeps going because age is relative. At any moment in the world, there is exactly one oldest person alive. Does that mean they're the only one allowed to feel old? Of course not. Because feeling old isn't about numbers, it's about comparison. And comparison is psychological, not mathematical. The real pressure. Life timelines. Here's where it gets real. You're 27, your parents were married by 25, maybe they had kids by 28. You scroll through social media, someone just got married, someone else just had their second baby, someone bought a house, someone got promoted, and you still feel like a kid inside. This right here is what psychologists call social clock anxiety. The social clock is an invisible timeline society hands you. Graduate by this age, marry by this age, have kids by this age, stabilize by this age. And when your life doesn't match that timeline, you feel behind, even if you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Research in developmental psychology shows that people who feel off schedule experience higher stress levels, even when they're doing fine objectively. Why? Because humans measure success socially, not internally. And social media made that 100 times worse. Before, you only compared yourself to your neighbors. Now, you compare yourself to everyone, all the time. Why high schoolers feel old. Here's something hilarious. Freshmen enter high school feeling tiny. By sophomore year, they roll their eyes at the new freshmen. By senior year, they act like they run the kingdom. Then they graduate, and boom, they're freshmen again in college. Looked down on by upperclassmen, this cycle never stops. It repeats in school, college, workplaces, even families. Psychologists call this hierarchical identity inflation. We define ourselves by who's below us in the hierarchy. When someone younger appears, we feel older. When someone older appears, we feel young again. Your sense of age changes depending on your surroundings. That's why a 30-year-old feels young around 50-year-olds, but ancient around 18-year-olds. Age isn't fixed, it's contextual. Older doesn't mean wiser. Here's a truth people don't like hearing. Growing older does not automatically mean growing wiser. Some people mature, some people just age. There's a difference. Psychologist Erik Erikson talked about stages of development. Each stage presents a challenge, but passing through time doesn't mean you solve the challenge. Some people never develop emotional intelligence. They just gain more years, and sometimes more freedom to make bigger mistakes. So don't automatically assume someone younger knows less, and don't assume someone older knows more. Wisdom is processed experience, not just accumulated birthdays. Why each generation should get smarter. Now here's the beautiful part. Every generation inherits knowledge from the previous one. Science, technology, history, mistakes. We build on what came before. That's called cumulative culture. If humans were immortal, we'd grow individually forever. But because we die, knowledge has to be passed on. That transfer forces progress. Each generation starts further ahead. So when you see younger people knowing more about tech, trends, language, it's not disrespect. It's evolution. You're not being replaced. You're part of the ladder, and someone stood on your shoulders too. So when do you actually become old? Here's a thought that might hit deep. You are the oldest you've ever been, right now. Let that sink in. Every second that passes, you're older than you've ever been before. Does that mean you should panic? Or does it mean this is the youngest you'll ever be again? Age isn't a countdown, it's perspective. The moment it gets dark, but beautiful. So we left off with this thought. You are the oldest you've ever been, right now, and also the youngest you'll ever be again. That sounds poetic, but it also sounds a little scary, because underneath the fear of getting old is something much deeper. It's not wrinkles, it's not metabolism, it's not even marriage pressure, it's mortality. Psychologists call it mortality salience. It's the subtle awareness that your time is limited. And here's what's crazy. Research in terror management theory shows that when people are reminded of their mortality, they suddenly become more anxious about achievements, status, relationships, and unfinished goals. So when you're 27 and thinking, shouldn't I be further by now? What you're really thinking is, am I running out of time? And that question, that's universal. Why 25-35 feels like an existential crisis. There's a reason this feeling hits hard in your late 20s and early 30s. Psychologists call it the quarter-life crisis. It's the first time you realize you are no longer becoming an adult. You are an adult. No tutorial mode, no practice round, no I'll figure it out later, and suddenly every decision feels heavier. Career choices feel permanent, relationships feel urgent, mistakes feel expensive. This stage creates something called identity consolidation pressure. You feel like you must lock in who you are. But here's the secret nobody tells you. Identity isn't something you lock in, it's something you refine. Your 20s aren't about having it all figured out. They're about experimenting, and experiments look messy. The social media distortion, let's talk about the silent villain. Social media doesn't show timelines. It shows highlights. You see the wedding photo, the baby announcement, the promotion. You don't see the fights, the doubt, the therapy sessions, the panic at 2 a.m. Psychologists call this upward social comparison bias. We compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, and our brain interprets it as evidence that we're behind. But being behind only exists if life is a race. And life, it's not a race, it's nonlinear. Some people marry at 23 and divorce at 30. Some people marry at 38 and stay together forever. Some people succeed at 25 and burn out by 40. Some people struggle until 35 and then build empires. Timeline is not destiny. Some people grow old. Some people grow up. Let's revisit something important. There are people who age but never mature. They repeat patterns, avoid responsibility, blame everyone else. Psychologists link this to arrested emotional development. Age increases, self-awareness doesn't. So if you're worried about feeling old, that might actually mean you're growing, because self-reflection is maturity. The people who never question their growth rarely grow at all. How to stay young without denying age. Here's where it gets powerful. Staying young doesn't mean pretending you're 18 forever. It means keeping three things alive: curiosity, playfulness, adaptability. Neuroscience shows that learning new skills literally keeps your brain flexible. It strengthens neural pathways. When you stop learning, you age faster psychologically. When you stay curious, you slow down mental aging. That's why some 70-year-olds feel vibrant and some 30-year-olds feel exhausted by life. Youth is energy, not a number, a shift in perspective. What if instead of asking, "Am I getting old?" you asked, "Am I growing deeper?" Because aging gives you things youth never could: emotional regulation, pattern recognition, resilience, perspective. The reason kids feel invincible is because they haven't experienced enough loss. But growth comes from experience, and experience takes time. You don't lose youth, you trade it for depth. The beautiful truth about generations: every generation thinks the next one is reckless, and the next generation thinks the previous one is outdated. But this tension, it's necessary. Older generations provide stability. Younger generations provide innovation. Without elders, we lose wisdom. Without youth, we lose progress. It's a balance. You're not aging out. You're evolving into a different role. So when can you feel old? Here's my answer. You can feel old whenever you stop imagining a future, because psychological aging doesn't begin with wrinkles. It begins with resignation. The moment you say, "This is just how life is now," that's when youth fades. But if you still have dreams, still have ideas, still want to improve, you're not old, you're becoming. Personal reflection. Moment. Maybe you're 22 feeling pressure. Maybe you're 27 questioning your pace. Maybe you're 35 worried you missed something. Let me tell you something real. There is no universal deadline. Life events don't expire. You are not late. You are unfolding, and unfolding takes time. Powerful outro to Blaus high engagement CTA. If this video made you pause for even a second, if it made you rethink your age, if it made you feel a little lighter, then don't just leave quietly. Comment this: "I'm not late, I'm evolving." Let's flood the comment section with that energy. Share this video with someone who feels behind, because chances are They just need perspective. And if you want more deep psychology content that actually makes you think and feel, subscribe to SOHAG'S tutorials. We don't just talk about the mind here. We decode it. Hit like, share it, and remember, you are the youngest you will ever be again. So don't waste today worrying about tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video.